Okay, grade 10 A and E. This is one of my final videos before I return home. I'm very excited. I'll see all of you on Thursday. So make sure, double sure that you have something to show me. Right, I don't expect a full practical examination quality um, a display on on the assignments that I've given you, but I need to see that you have been working on them. Remember, I know exactly what I've given you to do, so I'll be checking up on that. Okay. Right, page 159, staging and the stage when it comes to Greek classic theatre. Now, all theatre requires a suitable space for presentation. With Greek theatre, this was known as the orchestra. Now, when you hear the word orchestra today, you're thinking of a whole band of performers, musicians, all right. They actually took that word from the Greek word meaning the performance space in a Greek theatre space. All Greek theatre spaces were outdoors. They didn't have theatre buildings yet, all right. And the main performance space was known as the orchestra, all right. The orchestra was in the middle of a terrace, okay. It had an altar to Dionysus, the god Dionysus, in the center. And the main feature of this early form of theatre was that it was an open air event. There was little artificial scenery, and the natural environment created its own atmosphere. Originally, there was no scenic background, but sometime during the 5th or 4th century, before the birth of Christ, they introduced a very basic stage house known as a skene, S-K-E-N-E, a skene. Okay. Now, the stage house was located at the back of the orchestra, all right, the orchestra being, I'm going to show you here, here's a little sketch, right. If you look at this sketch, you will see that little round space over there, that's the orchestra. That's the main performance space. This little building at the back is known as the stage house or the skene. Now, this allowed actors entrances and exits. Okay. They would also decorate the stage house to suit wherever the play took place. So if it was, if for whatever background they needed. Okay. Now, this big semicircle you see over here is where the audience sat, and that is known as the theatron, the theater. Okay. And keep in mind that these theater sites were built outdoors, and the seating was raked and built into a hill, okay, for obvious reasons, so that the guys way at the back were right on top and could see down or watch downwards to what was going on. Now, I need you guys to remember that these theater spaces were built to accommodate up to 14,000 people. The Theatre of Dionysus in Athens, for example, could accommodate 14,000 people. So imagine 14,000 people seated in a semicircle on a hill, raked up like that, all watching the orchestra, the main performance space, with the stage house, known as the skene, in the background to create the scene. All right. So those are important terms that you guys need to remember for me. Okay. When you page over, bottom of page 160, staging devices. Now, the Greeks were quite innovative, and they came up with some interesting staging devices that we have developed throughout the ages, but still use today to an extent. Right. Top 161. Much of the action of Greek plays takes place outside, okay? Though there are some interior scenes. Most deaths occur off stage and the bodies are displayed afterwards. It seems that the large central doorway um, was opened and a wheeled platform rolled forward to show the victims to the audience. So you won't see them being killed. Their bodies, die lyke, would be wheeled forward onto the main stage or the main playing area, the orchestra, but it was a wheeled platform and it could be rolled forward to reveal the victims to the audience. Now, this platform was known as the esiklema. Okay. Depending on its shape, it could be rotated at an appropriate time to reveal something new. Okay. Another special effect came from the need in Greek plays for gods to appear. Very important one. They either descended from the roof or from the sciena, which means they had to come up from the ground. So obviously the underworld gods needed to come up from underneath, and the nicer gods needed to come from above. And what they used to do this, they created a crane-like device, soos 'n huiskraan tipe ding, okay, which was known as a machina. Okay, it's like machine, but it ends with a machina, and that's what they used for that purpose. All right, so very important. Two very important stage devices that they used is the esiklema and the machina. All right. Then, still on page 161, the actors and their resources. Now, from the middle of the 5th century, the state supplied 3 speaking actors for each tragic playwright. Obviously, they were all men. But now the plays had obviously more than 3. Sometimes they would have more than 3 main characters. Remember, the chorus was the background actors almost, all right? And they consisted of quite a lot of people. But there were 3, you'll see in any Greek play, there aren't many lead characters, usually only about up to maximum 5. I mean, in Oedipus Rex, you'll see, for example, it's Oedipus Rex, his mother, Jocasta, and who's the king in Oedipus Rex? The one that he killed, man, on the crossroads. Anyway, those 3 characters. Those are the main 3 main characters. But keep in mind, Jocasta would be played by a man as well, eh? The main actors were assigned to the writers randomly. So the writer and lead actor would then choose the other 2 actors. They all acted in the 4 plays presented by the dramatists. Since there were only 3 actors, they needed to be able to play many roles. Okay. We're not sure today about the style of acting used, but obviously you can imagine performing for 14,000 people, it had to be big, all right? The use of masks and the fact that one actor played many parts, including women's roles, suggests that realism was not important. The use of music and dancing also suggests that a non-realistic style of acting was used. Right? It seems that a very simple expressive style was used. Right? So it was not focused on realism at all. The issue dealt with by the players, especially in the tragedies, had a powerful emotional impact and carried important implications for Greek society. The performance style had to be appropriate in order to convey this. The size of the auditorium also influenced how actors moved and the style of their stance and gestures. The posture of the actor had to be upright to facilitate communication. So it was all very stylized, all right? There was no naturalism there. The actor would have to project his voice, gesture, and emotions powerfully through the space. Gestures were full, extended, and sustained, since small, quick movements would have been lost on such a vast audience. Gestures communicated emotional states and advanced the action, rather than indicating the personality of any one particular character. Keep what I've just said very, very closely in mind when it comes to preparing your choral verse piece. All right. It was big, It was melodramatic. It was formal, and it was also in pace. It was slow. All right, took forever. Right, guys, middle of page 162. They used masks. In Greek theatre, the mask was at the heart of the dramatic event. It came from ancient primitive rituals during which the wearer assumed the attributes of the mask. It gave the wearer a certain spiritual power and seemed to have a strong impact on the audience. The masks connected the spiritual nature of a tragic performance with its dramatic form. The actor had to live up to the character that the mask portrayed. All actors in Greek tragedy wore masks made of linen, cork, or wood. Masks allowed one actor to play many roles. The mouth was open, and in later periods, the feature became more exaggerated. Okay, the masks created stylized emotional effects. They were larger than the actor's face, covered the entire head, and depicted the whole face. Why? Because in 14,000 people seated, you needed to be, and you one little tiny human in the bottom, yeah, by the orchestra. The audience needs to see who you are playing, okay? So the masks helped identify the character to the audience. All right. Right, then we get to page 163, the headdress. They wore stuff on their heads as well. A headdress called the onkos, okay, was also worn. Some researchers say the headdress was quite high and exaggerated to balance the effect of the high-soled boots, the kortumi, believed to have been worn by the actors. So not only did they have these huge masks, they had huge headdress, and they had high-soled boots to make them look bigger. Obviously, to make them look bigger made them look more imposing, more important, and to put the focus on them. But not only that, once again, so that the whole audience had a better visual idea of what was going on. And that's also why the gestures were so big. And all right. So that they wore headdress as well. It was for visibility and to help define the character. Costumes, very interesting. Costumes in Greek theatre were colorful and decorative, reflecting the social status of the character. Color was used symbolically. For example, deep purple indicated royalty. The basic body garment was a chiton, which is a simple tunic pinned to the shoulder and worn knee length to the ankle. Over this was worn a short cape called a chlamys, or a long cloak called a himasion, which was draped over the right shoulder. So what you guys need to remember is tunics, cloaks, pinned to the shoulder. All right, so it was also very flowing, loose-fitting clothing. Okay. They wore lace-up boots. Okay. And the boots were oftentimes then elevated. Right. With high soles, in order to make the actor more visible to the audience, like I just said. Now, in comedies, the costumes were often grotesquely padded. A comedy wanted to make fun of certain individuals in society in Greek plays. All right, so the costumes were also they were grotesque. They were ugly. All right, they were padded. And so it's obviously fat shaming, that's where it started. And together with the grinning masks of the comic characters, they created a very different picture from the stately, tragic characters. Comic male characters wore a short tunic and a cloak with thick tights. The costumes were padded both back and front to make the actors look short and fat. Another convention in the comic costume was the use of okay, the use of a phallus. All right, this was a large I'm not going to read this now. This is all right, but this is you guys can read it on your own. Bottom of page 100. Bottom of page 163, you can read what a phallus was that the comic Greek actors used as part of their costume. All right. I have, and remember, this was also the phallus. I mean, these people were very much into fertility and virility. So, I don't know, not only were they fat shaming, they were obviously, yeah, doing phallic symbols. All right, that is it from me for now. I am, yes, the next video will, actually, what is tomorrow? It's Tuesday, so you'll still have a video for Wednesday, which will be from page 164, where we will just deal with the most important playwrights and their plays of the Greek period. Okay, we're talking about Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, Aristophanes, and Menander. All right, those are the 5 most important ones, of which the first 3 was the most important tragic playwrights, and then the last 2, Aristophanes and Menander, they were the most prominent comic writers. Okay, guys, keep on with your practical work. You have a monologue, you have a little movement sequence that you need to work on, and you have that choral verse that you need to work on. So if this video is finished, or any of the other videos, and you are in your groups, work on it. Okay, we will spend the last few weeks, when I'm back on Thursday, we will focus mostly on the practical work. Right, that's why I want to get the theory out of the way. After this chapter, the theory is done for term 2, so that we can just focus on applying the theory in our practical work. Okay, right, that's all from me for now. Have a good one. Keep it real, eh? Yeah.